name is Edgar Leblanc. I was born in Dalhousie, New Brunswick, and lived most of my life in Schreiber. I am 88 years old, and this is my first time for interview, yeah. In the early days, houses were heated by coal and wood stoves, and lantern and coal oil lamps for lights. Water from Cook's Lake by huge wooden barrels on sleighs and wagons by Tom Ackleton, pumped up by hand in the kitchen to overhead tank and attached to the ceiling, then to a water tank on the side of the kitchen stove with gravity flow. In the north end of town was Cosgrove Dairy Farm. Beyond that was the potato field, and I picked potatoes, a 90-pound bag for 5 cents. Where Texaco Garage is at present, Joe Saberio had a lumber mill. On the east side of town was the graveyard. Beyond that was the bushland, no highway. On the north side, nothing beyond Newman Street. Used to set up snares in the bush. On the west side of town was Walker's Lake Road, leading into Main Street, and across from railway tracks to Icebusters Drive to Lake Superior Beach. On the south side of town was the CPR houses, nicknamed Talcum Powder Row. Beyond that was the present ball field, and beyond that was Pelto's farm. In the town, outdoor wooden outhouses. Later on, indoor toilets led into cesspools. The YMCA was the meeting place for everybody. Town hall gathering place, bowling alley, restaurant, home to CPR train crews. Most stores were on Scotia Street. Schreiber had a drugstore on Scotia Street, operated by Mr. Witherspoon. On the winning street was the Blue Lagoon restaurant, called the Swamp. It was run by Chinese people. Stores on Scotia Street, Spadoni's Messages Bank, which is the Chimo Club, Bargain Johnny's store, John Thurba, Charlie Nesbitt's store. In the winter time, in one year, there was a tunnel from Spadoni's store to the town hall, which had a library and a barber shop and a hall upstairs and downstairs for shows, dancing, meetings, etc. It also had the town jail downstairs. In the early days, the town was served by Dr. H.S. Crow. His office was an old boxcar with a coal stove for heating. I remember all the bottles of pills about the size of a quart bottle, with a big heart printed on the side of the bottle, called Heart's Pills. He would take them down and blow all the coal dust that came into the room and off the train tracks. Next to the doctor's office was Willie Wing Laundry, Chinese fellow. The other Chinaman was Louis' Restaurant. I can't remember his last name. Dr. Crow was his best customer. He was single. On Manitoba Street, there was Spadoni's Garage. Bill Scott's Bakery. He also made a heavy bread for the German prisoners of war at Nays and Angler. On the same street, Hastings Store, Mauro Saberio had a hardware store. Joe Saberio had a store on Winnipeg Street. Between Scotia Street and Manitoba Street, the back lane, Sharky Scott, Bill Scott's brother, had a small bear to tie up. When it got bigger, the town told him to get rid of him. My father owned a mink ranch on Ontario Street behind where Bruce McLeod lives. He sent the minks to his sister in New Brunswick. In the Depression days in the 30s, all the men worked on the highway for $5 a month, including my father. Then all of the qualified men left to go to the war. The men who didn't go because of the CPR had to keep the railway to deliver the war supplies, etc., and were exempt. Charlie Ryan worked for the CPR, delivering parcels and all the freight that came into town. When we were kids, we paid 5 cents at the silent movies in the town hall basement. Costa's store started with Mr. Costa and Gina selling fruit and vegetables in a wheel cart. Also Big Jim Delio in his cart. The only policeman in town was Jack Handel. He only had one arm, but could handle anyone who got in his way. Now this is a story about Duke the Wonder Dog. Duke saved, there was a washout at Jackfish. Mr. Campbell, that's Joe Campbell there, he went run down the track and he waved to there. The dog had barked, and he wondered what it was barking at, and that's what it was. So they stopped the train. And then Duke also saved two young guys who were up on a lake in a snowstorm at Jackfish. Oh, and Bill Fraser took the dog and he went out after him in the storm, and Duke found the kids. One was I can remember one was a Milani from Jackfish. And Duke stayed at the YMCA and had his mat by the door. He could tell if the train was late, and Duke would get off his mat. When he could hear the engine at the east switch, he would go to the train where the cooks on the train fed him. I joined up in the Navy for 7 years and went through the war and never got hurt. In peacetime, 1947, I was on the destroyer Micmac. We were doing trial. And, it was sort of foggy the day we went out, but not sort of wispy foggy. But when we got out past what they call Sambro Lighthouse, the fog really started to come in. Nobody seems to know what happened anyway. We never heard any foghorns or anything. And all of a sudden, there was a 7,000-ton freighter from Halifax going down to New York. We were coming into the harbor, and we collided. There was 11 killed and 16 injured. I was one of the injured. Yeah, I was injured up the left buttock and banged in the right ear. I was awful mad because that happened to me, and I got out in 1948. They said, "Oh, you've got a good record. You want to stay in?" I said, "Bye-bye."
Thank you very much, Edgar.
Okay.